Hello, so today I'll be speaking about the MOTHA book, chapters 1 through 4. In particular, I'll be addressing chapter 1 and the contradictions surrounding English language. So, we can start to speak a little about the attitudes towards English, right? We've got a wide array of attitudes, such as desire, longing, commitment, resistance, hostility, and everything in between, right? So we often see English portrayed as representative of class prestige, educational opportunity, and cosmopolitan identity. Sort of this favored Western identity, right? Which is attractive and desirable. But what we don't see as much is how English is also involved in sort of a linguistic imperialism environment, right? And the dangers in that English dominance. As a lingua franca, English essentially eradicates other languages, especially minority languages who have fewer individuals that speak it, right? And we see the statistic in the book, which speaks about how most language minorities who move to the US lose their heritage language within just 2 generations. So, and I've seen this also in my life with classmates and friends, that they lament not being able to speak their heritage language, not being able to speak to their grandparents, wherever it may be, right? And they lament that their parents felt that they couldn't speak their language. And that's the thing. We often see minority languages and any other language really that isn't English represented as represented in cultural and social media, whatever it may be, right? So in a show, for example, we've got Gloria in Modern Family, who's laughable, lazy, whatever it may be, right? That accent in the US, which shaped Spanish as a language of poverty, and having an accent as unfavorable, right? And not desirable. And so not only do we see a loss of language and a loss of authenticity in that language, we also see a loss of philosophical ideas, of worldviews, and conceptual how each individual and each individual group conceptualizes reality, right? So it brings up another example on the Tibetan Buddhist healthcare, right? So how they try to incorporate medical terms such as biochemical and psychohealth and terms that just did not fit into that vocabulary because they had no place, right? Because in the Tibetan Buddhist healthcare, they utilize more of a holistic approach towards healthcare, right? So these words had no place, and in order to use them, they would have to modify their philosophical ideas, their worldviews, their approaches towards a certain thing, in this example, healthcare, right? And it's also brought up by Paul Grice, a philosopher, on how language and environment shape one another, right? Which goes to show this, right? So we've got the Eskimo language that Grice brings up, where we don't have as many words for the word white and for the word snow as the Eskimo language would have, because we are not in that environment. We do not have that same vocabulary. And that is what creates unique worldviews, unique perspectives, and so many other things, right? So not only are we losing language variety, we're also losing worldviews, philosophical views, as we've said, a lot of other things, far-reaching problems surrounding this language loss. And so historically, assumptions of racial and cultural superiority of Americans is and has been widespread, right? And continues to be known this way. So we see English essentially as a sign of colonialism in a history of place or decadence, and this is just the colonizing effects of English and an English language spreading, right? So this is how English can act as a contradiction, right? We've got these positive views and we've got these negative views, and these kind of go hand in hand, and that's what we need to speak more about as educators, and that's what I hope to do as an educator, is recognize both of these facets of English learning in today's world, and creating space and awareness of both, while also allowing the internalized views each individual has on it. So allowing that discussion and that open honesty, right? This is how I see it, this is how you see it. Okay, let's talk about the history of English, right? Let's talk about what this even brings up for each individual, right? So as educators, we must first bring awareness to the subject and talk about it, just as Motha does in this book. So it's really important, and it's really, really a good read, right? In order to sort of just to spark that and start talking about how we as educators can really make a change, right? And can really sort of, just as we also spoke about, Helwani and Jackson, right? So revealing sort of the multifaceted ways in which power dynamics intersect with cultural interactions. So let's look at power, let's look at colonialism, and let's bring awareness to it, right? Let's bring awareness to the different perspectives, the different worldviews, and everything in between, because this is what can create a more intercultural, inclusive classroom, and that's what's important for educators moving forward. Thank you.